Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Lynne Cockrum-Murphey, and she's going to tell us about her near-death experience, which is very tragic as at a young age as well. Okay. Hi, Lynne.
Hi, I'm, I'm Lynn, yes. And to go back in time to tell you about this experience, it was 1958. I was 2.5 years old and in my crib in my parents' bedroom. And we lived in Northern California, had a small home, and I had two sisters that were sleeping in another bedroom. My mother was at my grandmother's house, a couple doors away, and my dad was sleeping, and I was in my crib. And the furnace, something happened to the furnace, and it exploded and caught the house on fire. Um, I don't know many details. I have read the newspaper article from that time, but when I've tried to talk to relatives about it, I get all kinds of confusing pieces of information, some of which conflict. So found that interesting. There was a neighbor of of ours that told me later that he tried to get into the house and burned his arms trying to get in through the window. Um, anyway, so it was just my dad, my two sisters, and me. And my dad apparently woke up. He was sleeping, getting ready. Mom was going to come back, wake him up, and he was going to do night shift. Um, so he woke up, grabbed me, carried me outside. So I was found on the lawn in front of the house. My two sisters were in a bedroom at the back, I don't know, behind the kitchen, on the other end of the explosion. And he could not reach them, and he tried and tried. And it is mostly because he did that he died. He died in the hospital a few days later. Interestingly, my mother said that she saw him in the hospital, and apparently, due to shock, she said she saw him as beautifully suntanned instead of the way he really looked. So I was found out on the lawn and taken to the hospital, and um, it's interesting because like I don't know. I was there, and I don't know what it was like. I just know that neighbors and family, were trying to do something, and there just wasn't it wasn't possible. So my burns are on my forehead, my face. When I was young, you could see them. You can't. I can see them now when I put on makeup, but nobody else can see them. There's a couple of deep ones right here that you can't really see them. I have burns on my chest and my legs. I can't even see them now. But I do have burns on this arm. I think you can see it's pretty mottled. And then they get bigger as it goes up here. It's funny because it ends right here now.
Uh-huh.
And it used to go clear up here. But as I grew, it
Oh,
doesn't grow. So it's now much lower. And it has stretched out. So, gosh, it's it's not hard to talk about it. I've had times when it just surprised me. I was like, I would start crying. I'd be like, "Wow, that's odd. What happened today?" Um, so I did have an experience when I was in the hospital, um, and this is like the only thing I remember from that hospital stay is two blue angels standing at the foot of my bed, talking to me, comforting me. And I think that was my sisters, two sisters that died, Peggy and Susie. Let's see. Oh, so the burns in my arm were pretty bad. And the other thing that I do remember is that my grandmother, my dad's mom, continuously rubbed my arm with medicines and then with lotions because it was, she was trying to prevent it from atrophying. Because if you don't move that limb after something like that, it will atrophy and you won't have movement. So she would have me stretch it. She would have me play with her, catch the little red balls she would throw to me. And being 2.5 years old, I'd do it anyway, and then it would hurt. And then I'd play again, and then it would hurt. And that has a lot to do with why I have full range of movement with that arm and hand. The scars do go all the way down into the fingers, down to about here. And it's been suggested that the reason my arm got more burnt than anything else, I mean, this one has burns, but not as bad, is that I put my arms around his neck, and probably this one was on the back and got burned the worst. So the near-death part, I think, I don't know when I left my body, but I do know that I didn't want to come back. And that there was a nurse that sang to me, and that was really comforting. Not that I remember the comfort from that, but I understand that that is part of what brought me back. I've had a lot of readings and guidance about what happened since I can't remember. And they said that I kept trying to leave and that I wasn't supposed to die. So they kept bringing me back and telling me, you can't go, as in the angels saying you can't go. And I think it must have been pretty painful. Like I really didn't want to come back. And yet here I am. So it was meant to be this way, or I would have passed back then. And it's so interesting that my mother, she lived and she was 49, that she wasn't home. And by the time that she and my grandmother realized something was happening and went down the street to the house, it's not like she would go inside. I don't know. I don't know much about what she did. Nobody has told me about that.
Huh.
So that was what I would consider a real near-death experience, in that I would have gone if I could have. And I don't know who was resuscitating me. I don't know any of that. Because, of course, the smoke inhalation is one of the things that does a lot of damage. And that is totally unrelated to how I sound right now. I am getting over some allergy stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, that's all. That's all that is. So I'm open to any questions. And then I have another.
Did you have smoke inhalation as well as the burns?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, totally unavoidable. But I don't know anything about that. I mean, it's interesting because, of course, I was in the hospital. I went to the doctor a lot, but I've never read the records. I've never talked to the doctor about it. I mean, and he's passed now, of course. So that was a long time ago. He was just the what would you call him? The family doctor, like one of the few doctors in town.
A horrible thing. I'm sure it's
Yeah.
marked your life to lose two sisters and your dad.
Yeah. I remember, I have this vague memory of being in the hospital going, where did everybody go? Like, where? How come I'm here? And, like in a crib in the hospital alone going, well, this is not right. And then I don't remember my mother visiting me, but I know that I believe my grandmother told me that she did. I can't imagine what state my mother was in. I mean, I can imagine what that would be like. Um, and I got good care, and I went to uh, Shriners. I think the Shriners were the ones that did an assessment, and they said that they would do surgery on my arm if they, if mom and I wanted that, but it said it would make my arm look funny anyway because they would take skin off my back and put the skin on my arm in like little squares, and it would look like a patchwork.
Oh.
And I was maybe 10 when that happened. And I said, no, like I'm really used to this look. And I don't want a patchwork to be as bad or worse. And then I would have scars on my back from where we took the
Yeah.
skin. And, heading into middle school, you go to PE, you change your clothes. And I didn't want to be a part of that. So I just left it as it is. And I also used to have to watch out for sunburns when I was a child, because that was bad, really bad for my arm, and it would burn easily, as with my face. But it all worked out.
When did you start to realize that was a near-death experience?
When I started realizing how badly I wanted to die, and that I would think I was in my 30s. So it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while, because I'm in my 60s now. So, because I always had a desire to understand what happened, why did that happen, as people do about tragedies. And my mother lived till I was 25, and she would talk to me about it once in a while, but maybe twice, three times total. Yeah. And then she would say things to me when I was a teenager, like, if your father was here, you wouldn't be acting like this, or you wouldn't be getting away with this. And I'd go, really? Because I didn't know him. I was too young to really know him. So, yeah. He was a handsome man. I love my pictures of him, and of the two of them. He was blonde, fair skinned like me. And they say I look quite a bit like him.
Mm. What was your dad's name?
Raymond Lester Cockrum.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's why I think that I've kept my maiden name along with my husband's name out of respect for my father. And I mean, someone who saves your life, that's kind of huge.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I go by Lynne Cockrum-Murphey.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was an incident in Hawaii a few years ago. That was another pretty close call. You want to hear about that?
Sure.
Okay. So we were swimming at Hanahama Bay, Hawaii, and there's a coral reef or something. And I swam out past that, and it was all rough, and scratched me up. And so I swam out further, and then I couldn't touch the bottom. So I wanted to go back in where the water wasn't as rough. But the coral reef, I didn't want to get all scratched up again by it, nor did I want to damage the coral reef. So I didn't know how to get in. And so this wasn't a near-death experience. It was more of a, by God, I won't die here experience. It brought up this big welling of determination of, I'm going to get that lifeguard's attention no matter what. And so a couple of people came by, a couple of swimmers, strong swimmers, and supported me for a while. And I started waving to because before you can go in the water, you have to listen to watch a video about how to keep yourself safe there.
Huh.
And one of the things it said is if you're in trouble, wave at the lifeguards. So I had lost my mask and I was holding my snorkel and waving that, waving that, waving that. And I don't remember what happened to the guy that was holding me up for a while. But the lifeguard swam out to me because I couldn't get back in, but I also couldn't stay out there. I'm not that strong of a swimmer. So the lifeguard came and got me and brought me in, and he was annoyed. He's like, "Hey, you weren't drowning." I was like, "Oh, yeah, I
Sorry.
was trying not to." And I got onto the beach and just collapsed because I was exhausted from,
Mhm.
struggling to keep my head up. So, but that was entirely different. I mean, it wasn't like leaving your body, but it was interesting in that there's that determination that rose up that said, "No way, this is not my time. I'm getting out of this situation." It was really strong. I'm glad I had that. And I suppose, that happens with a lot of people. That's how people get out of all kinds of harrowing situations is there's that will to live.
I've heard people say that uh, they the worst way of dying for them be drowning. I said, well, yeah, that hurts, but it's kind of quick. I've always had the fear of burning.
Oh God. Yeah, that's got to be really, really painful. And the smoke inhalation, I guess, does you in before the burns do. Um, wow. Yeah. I mean, it's like I was going to say I can't imagine, and yet I was there, but I was so young. Um, and because I left my body, I like, and I don't know exactly when I came back into my body, except that that nurse in the hospital kept singing to me, which was part of what was happening, is bringing me back. There seems like there's some other piece to that that I don't know or I don't remember to how she knew what to do. And I don't know that she was holding me because I thought that she was holding me and singing. But again, there was a lot of my body she couldn't touch, right? So I don't know if the wounds were covered or not. I just don't know any of that about it. And it seemed like it was too painful to ask relatives. Um, like none of them wanted to talk about it, or they could only talk about it from their point of view. Like one of my aunts said, she heard the sirens. This was a small town, so when the sirens went off, you knew that there were, that fire trucks are going out, that there was something happening. And she said she heard that sound and she thought, God, I hope it's nobody I know. And then later on, she found out it was like, it was her family,
So
relatives.
you don't remember the actual burning, your dad carrying you out, but you remember the NDE, right?
I remember two things. One is standing. Well, I've had two regressions to remember because I wanted to know more. And what I got was standing in the crib, my face was burning and my throat was burning and I was screaming. So I do remember that. Um, that was one memory. What was the other one? Um, no, that's the only one. That's the one because then I didn't want to do any more regressions because it was too awful. I don't want to experience that again. I don't need to know more. Um, so the not being allowed to die, that was something I was told later that you were trying to. And I believe that was a psychic that told me that because I can't remember who said it, but it was like it's not allowed. You got to get back in that body. You got to stay here.
So what you remember yourself after that is seeing what you believe it was your sister standing there.
Yeah, two blue angels, and they talked to me. I don't remember what they said, but they talked to me, and it was comforting. And so I think that those were my sisters who had passed and cared about their little sister because they were 8 and 6, and I was 2.5. So
Oh,
it was almost 3 because it happened in May. I believe it happened in May and in April, and I was born in June, so I was almost 3.
I've been binge watching on Netflix called This Is Us. And the whole premise of the movie is where the father at one point goes back in the house when it's on fire and to get the dog. And they think he's okay at the hospital. They're getting ready to leave. And they come and tell the wife he died from the smoke inhalation. He had a widowmaker, put too much the inhaling the smoke put too much stress on his heart. And they're like, no, we're going home. He's fine. He just come in for burns. And it's like, no. So it's a real clear picture of, the house being on fire and him, he rescued his family out. And then they were all out, but then he was still on the roof and the daughter wanted to go back and get the dog. Of course, it's all, fiction, but it just really puts a visual in my mind of what you're saying. The dad dies trying to rescue the dog. But yeah, he rescued the family first.
Well, and I think that's one of the things about parents is they can't let their children be hurt if they can do anything. And so I don't know what was happening with my mom, other than eventually they heard the noise and she and grandma came down the street. But yeah, my dad gave his life trying to save his kids. And I've been told again through a psychic that um, he wanted to be able to, was like, I've got to save at least one. If I want to save them all, but if I could just save one, it would matter. Would matter. Um, so he saved me, but then he kept going back in. So
It's good that he brought you out. He went back in to get the girls because, yeah, I picture him carrying you and trying to save them. I mean, you have all perished. So.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. Yeah. So a long, long time ago, in a small town, and so it's really different now with the number of fire stations that towns have or cities have, and um, the amount of equipment they have on the fire trucks, or that what's the little truck that goes out with them that has all the medical equipment. And that's not how it was.
And I doubt if everybody had smoke alarms back then.
Oh no, 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 no such thing. One of the other important things was at the hospital they put me in an oxygen tent. That was how I breathed, and I was in that for quite a while. I don't know how many days, but oh, and it was really important. I learned later that the amount of oxygen be just right, because that was what blinded a lot of people. Is that the oxygen mixture was too rich, and a lot of people got blinded by that. Was it Stevie Wonder? Some famous people even that happened to them, but somehow my doctor knew, what it should be, and I didn't have any problems with that. In fact, I don't think I've really had problems from the fire at all. I mean, like, I know it healed up. I know my grandmother administered to the skin a lot, and I had a good doctor. And I did have to go to a burn clinic uh, in the next town over. And then I remember the day my mother said, "This is the last time we have to go." And then there was the Shriner's option when I was 10. And, I didn't take it because I didn't want surgery. So, because by then I'd been through, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, and had kids say the things that they say to kids, like most kids just were like, wanted to see my arm, and they would say, ooh, like, ooh, that's, um, but one kid said something really mean, and I was in fifth grade by then, and I was shocked because nobody had ever been mean to me back. And I thought, what's wrong with him? He would say something like that to me. So it didn't have any, no deep wounds from that. I figured it was his problem, not mine.
It's a good reaction. What's wrong with him? Instead of what's wrong with me, what's
Yeah,
wrong with him? That would
yeah,
say something like that.
yeah.
Okay.
So the Hawaii experience wasn't a near death experience. It was a, by God, I'm not going to have a near death experience. Getting out of here. Um, but I thought it was significant because it could have been, and because of that determination, that fight that comes up. And I think it's great that human beings have that.
It's a good thing you didn't have that experience when you were in that you did not want to live period in your 30s. Who knows?
Oh, that would have been a problem. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And life has been up and down because my mother had a lot of problems after that. She um, nobody talked about having therapy in 1958 or 1959, so she didn't get any assistance, and the family would take her out for a drink, and so then she started drinking too much,
No.
and so later on that was an issue for me because she wasn't around a lot. She was very wounded, but by God, she went to work every day and supported, herself and me. She remarried, and but she was never. Somebody said she had a lot of spunk. She she was feisty, but she didn't have inner peace. And I remember seeing her at night crying a couple of times after I was a teenager. But she also said, that um, because she was raised very religious by her mother, um, that she knew how to turn it all over to Jesus, just give it all to Jesus. And then she would be relieved of it and she could get to sleep and feel better. So I was surprised to know that because she didn't take me to church a little bit. Um, but it sure gave her relief. And I'm glad for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear so many people putting down religion anymore, especially NDEers or NDE researchers. Like, I don't get it. I mean,
People
it
find
helps so
that
many people, and I'm a Christian, so of course I don't like it, but still,
uh,
it helps other people. So why does it bother others? It's like leave
uh,
them alone. They're not hurting you. Oh, they're
yeah,
judgmental. Well, nobody's judging you right now. So,
yeah.
you know,
I think that Christians have gotten a bad reputation because of the people that were judgmental.
yeah,
Um, but anybody who has faith and belief in something greater than themselves have something to hold on to. And when the crises in life happen, you need something to hold on to. And I do think that that's a lot why I developed the faith that I have is because I needed to understand why did these things happen? Why am I here? Why are none of them here? And why am I here? That survivor's guilt thing. Yeah. So, you do what you can. And um, when I couldn't get, it was interesting because there were times that I'd ask ministers and stuff for, like, well, why did this happen? And they didn't have answers. So then I tried,
because the furnace blew up.
yeah, and then I tried different religions, looking to see who had answers. And I found in some I got a little more relief, but um, No, and that's also why I went to psychics. You know, like what do they know that I don't know? It's like, yeah, searching for answers.
You know, today maybe the furnace company would have been sued or something.
Oh yeah, sure. And there would have been something to, except for that it was mostly family members that were working on it. So that would have caused a problem too.
Oh,
Yeah. But it's, you know, it's okay. I kind of get that it's all meant to be the way it works out, and you just make the best of it. You know, I think my father had there's a real special thing about my father because he saved my life, you know, and my mother wasn't meant to be there that day, you know. Um, they also said it was a big deal because my grandmother had lost, my dad's mother had lost a child when the child was 5 years old. And my grandmother was pretty freaked out about losing two grandchildren and her son. And she had another son, but uh, and so she was really good to me. She really helped raise me. She spent a lot of time with me, and she was my babysitter sometimes. And um, we moved into apartments further down that street, and so my grandmother was always having me over. It's good. Yeah.
I mean,
So I feel, I don't know. For me, I feel very provided for, both in spirit and in family. Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And enjoy the rest of your 60s, I guess. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and I hope it comforts people who need to hear it. You know, that horrible things happen, and yet you're able to go on. You're able to uh, find peace in life still. It's amazing. Yeah, I did read things like Viktor Frankl, something on meaning. I read, um, oh, the girl from the concentration camps. Oh my gosh. One of the survivors. Anyway, some of those things um, to learn about how they dealt with being a survivor, um, and that you know it's just like trying to piece everything together so it makes sense to you. Yeah, so I encourage people to do that. You know, find your answers, talk to people, and if it isn't, you know, if it isn't your minister, then try a psychologist. Try books on your death experiences. You know, yeah, find comfort for yourself.
We all have things we have to overcome.
True. So true.
It's what makes us strong. And
Yeah, it
we
does.
help others when they go through
Yeah,
things. So,
I fully agree. I think that that was one of the benefits because I have compassion for other people. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Peggy. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about all that.
okay. All right. Well, thank you, Lynn.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.